Capital Analytics is a unique multimedia platform that specializes in business intelligence on dynamic markets through our digital and print reports, high-impact conferences and events, as well as top-level digital content through our video platform, Invest Insights. We are unique in our approach in that over a 6-month research period, we interview over 200 local CEOs to put together the information that becomes the contents of each 200-page annual report. Our platform takes a deep dive into the most important economic sectors to promote the markets in which we operate to the national and global investor, entrepreneur, and business person. But it is not only the annual business guides we produce. Capital Analytics hosts high-impact leadership summits where executives convene to discuss the latest obstacles and how to best tackle them. Next, our subscribers stay up to date through our weekly newsletters. We cover hot topics and key issues relevant to the day-to-day business, keeping our subscribers to the annual reports continually up to date. We also put a voice and face to the words in our Invest Insights video series. Hear perspectives on the markets we cover and why they are advantageous from the people making it happen right now. And lastly, the Capital Analytics podcast, where our listeners take us on the go to stay informed of the latest business advice from those at the helm. At Capital Analytics, we know great words come from great minds, and so we bring you real insights.
Good morning, Philadelphia. How is everyone today? Yes. Good morning, good morning. Honored speakers, moderators, panelists, and guests. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Abby Maloney, the President and CEO of Capital Analytics. Welcome to the official launch conference of Invest Philadelphia 2022, our annual analysis of the regional landscape with insights into the exciting and emerging opportunities and also the challenges that lie ahead. First, let me say how wonderful it is to be back in person. 2022 marked the restart of our in-person events, and while we've been thrilled with our digital events, nothing quite beats the ability to gather together face-to-face discussing the leading issues in our community. Also, I love an excuse to come back to my home area. I grew up in Haddonfield, New Jersey, and Philly was my city for a very long time before I moved to Miami, so I always love being back in town. I'd like to set today's stage for the discussion that we will be hearing today, as well as highlight some important findings from our report. Looking at the landscape, this is an exciting time for Greater Philadelphia. Despite the uncertainty that looms over both the national and regional economies in the near term, our research suggests that the region is positioned itself for future growth. One reason for that is economic diversity. In compiling our annual report, sectors like healthcare and education, biosciences, technology, and especially innovation emerged from our interviews and research as important drivers across the Philadelphia MSA. In fact, in the last decade, the region has successfully transformed from a manufacturing hub into an innovation hub. The presence of leading educational institutions like UPenn, Drexel, Temple, and some of the amazing speakers that will be present today underpin that successful transition, providing a much-needed pipeline of skilled talent. But there are challenges too. As we point out in our report, the city of Philadelphia, the nexus of the region's economy, is experiencing net population outflow, partially due to the rise of remote working. Regional suburbs have benefited from that, but it is an area that needs to be addressed, particularly given the shortage of workers that continues to pressure the spectrum of industries here in Philadelphia. One factor that could mitigate the population issue is the region's relative housing affordability in relation to other major metropolitan areas. But here too, there are risks. Rising inflation and the subsequent hikes in interest rates we are all experiencing could push the cost of home ownership out of reach for some, even as it cools the housing market. So, there is uncertainty that will most likely continue to be the case for the near term. How we deal with that uncertainty will help define our future, and that is the subject of our first panel today, Risks and Rewards, Sound Decision-Making in an Uncertain and Volatile Economy. Our panel today will also reflect on the importance of our educational institutions and moving the economy forward. Educators have gone through a tumultuous period, but have come out on the other end with a renewed purpose and a better understanding of how to partner with businesses and industry to deliver the skills of the future. But they also need to serve demands of today's students. It's a balancing act that our second panel will dive into. Another area that is growing in importance regionally and globally is this energy crunch and the need for green innovation. Philadelphia is moving forward on that front and has joined other U.S. cities in committing to a net zero carbon future. Given recent fuel inflation and the global risks that are partially to blame, our final panel will discuss those issues and how they are driving green innovation and transition to a sustainable economy in the region. Although we face a possible recession heading into 2023, or certainly a prolonged slowdown, our interviews in Invest Philadelphia 2022 agree that a balanced strategy and adaptability will be necessary ingredients to see us through, partially here in the shorter term. This need for balanced strategy and adaptability is particularly true for small businesses that make much of the region and national economy. I've experienced it myself with my company, Capital Analytics, and business intelligence now is our bread and butter and will always be vital to growth. We provide that through our printed publications, our digital resources, and conferences like this. But just as important as the intelligence we provide are the relationships that we create and promote. And through these conferences and through our video platform, Invest Insights, where we provide an avenue for regional leaders to speak directly to the community. In all our discussions with hundreds of businesses and political leaders over the past year, there's a marked emphasis on optimism. Today's leaders and our team at Capital Analytics are confident that tomorrow's landscape will be even stronger, brighter, and better across the spectrum of sectors that make up Greater Philadelphia. We have quite a lineup for you today. However, before our discussions begin, I'd like to take a moment and thank our sponsors of today's event. Our gold sponsors, Eisner-Amper, Lincoln University, Mid-Penn Bank, Newman University, Penn State Brandywine, SEI, Vicinity, and WGL Energy. Our silver sponsors, the Haverford Trust Company, Markham, NRG, Ocean First Bank, Salus University, Temple University Health System. Our bronze sponsors, Brandywine Realty Trust, Bucks County Community College, CBiz, CLA, Comcast Business, Community College of Philadelphia, EBA, the Employing Bricklayers Association, Ernst & Young, HDR, Philadelphia Works, Stockton Real Estate Advisor, and UBS, and our honored sponsor, Philadelphia Marriott Downtown and Philiport. Thank you. It is with your support that we can continue to bring speakers and content to the greater Philadelphia area. You might have noticed some table stands on your tables with some information on our social media. Please be sure to join the discussion by adding us, following our handles, tagging us, and adding the hashtag IPHL22Summit. Also, you can register for complimentary access to our Invest library by using the QR code also on that same table stand. As of today, the Invest Philadelphia 2022 report will be available in that library. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote, Ann Nadal, the Commercial Director of the City of Philadelphia. Ann, can you please join me on stage?
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to represent the Kenney administration and to celebrate the 4th Invest Philadelphia Leadership Summit with all of you today as we continue to enhance the diverse portfolio of Philadelphia's economy together. My name is Ann Nadal, Commerce Director for the City of Philadelphia, a city destined for thriving, inclusive, and equitable success in every sector. And it is encouraging to see so many of you in person today. My goal today is to make the case for Philadelphia as a great place to invest and do business. Let me first highlight a few of our differentiators, which you undoubtedly know. The Philadelphia region is home to more than 2,000 medical technology companies, 15 major health systems, and more than 50 of the most cutting-edge cell and gene therapy development companies, with countless research labs advancing the healthcare industry. Additionally, 80% of all pharmaceutical and biotech companies in the U.S. have offices in Greater Philadelphia, showcasing how world-class institutions are drawn to the region's specialties. The Philadelphia Talent Pipeline ushers in 300,000 students who attend our universities, research centers, technical schools, and colleges every year. And 54% of those graduates stay in Philadelphia and are employed in world-class growth industries, including life sciences, technology, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, banking and finance, real estate, construction, and education. And finally, Philadelphia is a hub of world-class dining experiences, history, cultural attractions, and vibrant commercial districts providing creativity and transformative ideas for the economy. And we also have the honor of being the country's first World Heritage City. Now, as we focus on the future of our economy and the investment decisions so many are making today, it is vital to understand where we have been so that we can build our future with intention. If I may, I'd like to paint a picture for you and ask that you think about what year I'm talking about when I cite the following data. The city represented 58% of the total regional economic impact of $7.1 billion. Philadelphia's gross domestic product grew by over 30% over the previous decade to $121 billion, with a steady population growth to more than 1.6 million people. Philadelphia saw a 15% increase in jobs over the previous decade to over 740,000 people. Two of the largest sectors in Philadelphia's economy, healthcare and social assistance and professional and business services, accounted for 62% of employment gains. Philadelphia's job market outpaced the national job market by over 2.5%. 46 million people visited the five-county Greater Philadelphia region, which marked the 10th consecutive year of growth and an increase in overnight visitations. We enjoyed over $7.5 billion in direct visitor spending, supporting over 105,000 jobs across the city. Center City leisure hotel demand grew to 1.1 million bookings, and our airport saw 33 million passengers, an all-time high, ranking PHL the 20th busiest airport in the country. Commercial development increased 41% year over year, as reflected in the number of building permits issued by the Department of Licenses and Inspection, demonstrating record business attraction to the city. What year in Philadelphia's history was our city booming at such a high rate of economic growth? That was 2019. Philadelphia had the strongest economic trends in recent history, and the sky was the limit. Now, instinct, logic, and a healthy dose of Philadelphia skepticism might lead you to believe that 2019 is a thing of the past, and that we will never witness that type of growth and resilience in our lifetimes. Now, I'd like to brag a little bit on Philly and the region with some additional facts that will help disabuse us all of that notion. Here are some highlights. Philadelphia is rebounding at the same rate as 2019 and surpassing those numbers for many key industries. These very industries are the same that will help build equitable career opportunities for all of our local talent, leverage foot traffic to our local neighborhoods, and attract and retain a diverse portfolio of businesses. Venture capital has been attracted to our region in record numbers, with over $8 billion in 2021 and another $3.8 billion in the first half of 2022. A third of this capital has gone to life sciences startups and companies, further positioning Philadelphia as a key cluster for global healthcare and life sciences. As of September 2022, a comparative study from the CEO Council for Growth ranks the Greater Philadelphia region number 2 among 14 cell and gene therapy hubs. To date, 6 FDA-approved cell and gene therapies have originated in the region and attracted $12 billion in life sciences investments. More than 1,800 life science companies in the Greater Philadelphia region have employed more than 70,000 people since 2021. We are seeing life sciences companies select Philadelphia, for our talent, our cost of doing business, our location, and proximity to so many life science assets. The Philadelphia region leases nearly 12 million square feet of lab and advanced manufacturing space. More than 9 million additional square feet are planned, and we estimate that 2/3 of that new space will be located within city limits. We all know of the growth of life sciences in the University City. However, life sciences companies are soon going to be calling 23rd and Market home, along with pockets further to the east at the Curtis Center and north in Fishtown. We are seeing developers take a chance on Philadelphia. Not only are we seeing life sciences space being built on spec, which had never been done before, but we are also seeing national developers such as Wexford, National, Durst, Longfellow, and Brandywine, to name a few, breaking ground for the first time in Philadelphia, and much of that development has taken place since 2020. We are proud to be positioning Philadelphia as the most diverse tech hub and cell and gene therapy capital of the world. Tech companies are innovating an ecosystem of digitalization that sustains the talent pipelines for robotics, artificial intelligence, advanced logistics, and more, all increasingly connecting the global economy to write the next chapter of our growth potential. The incredible public partnership at the Philadelphia Navy Yard and the future developments at Hilco, the former Sunoco refinery, and the Lower Schuylkill all provide a synergy for our life sciences and advanced manufacturing sectors that few could have imagined even in 2019. We are constantly expanding tourism, trade, and connectivity by adding new routes to foster movement of cargo, business, and investment connections worldwide. These investments are fostering thousands of high-impact jobs in the region, creating opportunities to revitalize vast land parcels, and producing billions of dollars of economic impact. Our first direct shipping route connecting Philadelphia to Asia started operation in August, and we also have a new route planned for the west coast of South America. Philadelphia Ports, which brings family-sustaining jobs to the city and $546 million in upgrades under Governor Wolf, is the fastest-growing container port on the East Coast. The expansion in cargo and logistics operations at the airport is taking it to new heights, and the same can be said of Northeast Airport. Convention bookings are back to 2019 levels. Hotel revenue is at its highest compared to the pre-pandemic era, up 99.4% since 2020, when of course no one was coming. And of course, with 2026 on the horizon, we will be hosting not only FIFA World Cup events, but also the MLB All-Star Game and the 250th birthday celebration of our nation. The city's retail market has grown substantially, attracting 90 national retailers and generating more than $1 billion in annual retail demand. Since March of 2020, Center City has welcomed 135 new storefront businesses, 42 new businesses are announced, with downtown openings and more expected. Philadelphia has a strong demand for workers. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics monthly employment data even showed that for September of 2022, an additional gain of 2,400 jobs was seen in the city. And to top it off, Philadelphia has one of the strongest recoveries of all metro regions, currently above our regional peers like Washington and New York in terms of employment relative to pre-COVID levels. Our workforce development partners are preparing Philadelphians for career opportunities and family-sustaining jobs. While Philadelphia has always relied on the strong eds and meds sector, we are now seeing significant increases in employment in transportation and professional services, as well as our thriving advanced manufacturing sector. And in other clear signs of a bright future for Philadelphia, we are now seeing projects and ideas for Center City, from the 76ers' potential new arena to the Calder Gardens and the reimagining of 1801 Vine on the Parkway to a significant national corporate headquarters relocating to Philadelphia. I highlight all of this to showcase the city's resiliency during one of the most challenging times any of us have ever witnessed. Our city has always weathered difficult economic times thanks not just to the diversity of our industry, but to the resilience of who we are as a city. Yes, we have our quality of life challenges, as all major cities do. And yes, the pandemic highlighted the inequities in our economy. And in no way am I trying to gloss over those truths, and we have a long way to go to address them. However, the pandemic has also provided us with an opportunity to strategically and intentionally plan where we go next. If we do this right, making sure that every neighborhood sees investment and that there are career opportunities for all of our residents, regardless of their educational attainment, we will emerge from the pandemic a stronger, smarter, and richer city. And we will address many of the challenges that we face. During this morning's panel discussions, you will hear more about how investors and businesses can approach decisions in today's dynamic market and the importance of aligning education and opportunity with economic development. From the pre-pandemic era to now, let's continue advancing Philadelphia as a globally competitive city where employers flock, entrepreneurs thrive with equitable economic opportunity, and for all who call the city home and choose to invest exponentially in Philadelphia. Thank you, and remember that good things do happen in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Let's please give it up for Ann. So many familiar faces today, and let me tell you, it's really great to be here live in person. I know we've all been waiting for this for quite some time. For all of you who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Josh Greenberg, and I'm the Senior Executive Director of Invest Philadelphia. I'll be back a little bit later to give our closing remarks, so I'd now like to introduce our first panel presenter for the panel Risks and Rewards, Sound Decision Making in an Uncertain and Volatile Economy, Jordan Kendall, Partner, Tax and Business Services of Markham LLP. Please come on up, Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. So here we are, back live and in person. As Josh said, my name is Jordan Kendall. I'm a tax partner at Markham LLP here in Philadelphia. Probably many of you are wondering, how can a tax partner be standing here on October 12th with many of your tax returns probably due in 5 days? Truth be told, I asked myself that same question. I mean, last night at 10:30, I'm sitting saying, am I really doing this? I've got half of this room probably still to do and get out by Monday. But nonetheless, I'm here because of the things that Ann spoke about, the things that Josh mentioned, is going to mention later, and that Abby mentioned earlier. I mean, this organization here is all about investing in Philadelphia. And investing in Philadelphia is one of the things that Markham does well, right? We are an organization that is really proud to sponsor this event. It's an annual event that hasn't happened in 3 years, I believe. Is that right? In person in 3 or plus years. And to be in front of people without having to say, we're going to offer free lunch today, or we're going to offer you a happy hour, it's really nice to see you people. Markham is an organization that is an accounting and advisory services organization that is really driven by entrepreneurial middle market companies and high net worth clients. Our goal really is to complement those organizations, help them grow, and to offer them a spectrum of services such as tax, assurance, advisory work, all with the goal of helping them advance their long-term goals. How do we do that? We do that through extensive portfolio industry-driven professionals. They specialize in things from private organizations to the public sector and publicly registered organizations. We also deal in the nonprofit and the social sectors as well. Many of you may have heard that in the last month, we have merged with another national firm, Friedman LLP. That's been a really exciting opportunity for all of us. Friedman has helped us fill in some of the areas where they were strong and they needed assistance. We were strong or weaker, and they had some real quality people that were filling in some of the gaps where we were thin at talent. And I believe we did the same for them. We have 35 offices nationally. We focus on areas such as construction, healthcare, cannabis, hotel, retail, the service industries as a whole. We do a lot of work in those spaces. So if you're ever in the need for information, go to our website, ask Markham. You know, there's probably some kind of piece of paper you could pull off one of the buses that drive down the street as well if you're looking for information. With that, we are thrilled to, again, to be sponsors here. I am honored to introduce our first moderator. Our first moderator's name is Binny Witzlebach. I'm sorry, I apologize, Binny. Binny is the president of Haverford Trust Company, and she is going to moderate the first panel for us today. So please, Binny.
When my mother gave me the name Benny, she said, don't worry. You don't have to worry about the last name because it's kind of like Cher, Madonna, Oprah, Benny. Just go with the first name. So no worries. Wittlisbach's too hard to pronounce, let alone spell. Welcome. Delighted to be here, and we're going to jump right into it because we have some terrific panelists, and we're going to have a good conversation. So, Ryan, I'll start with you. Ryan is the CEO of SEI. And if you've seen the logo flashing up on the screen here, you notice that the bottom is a rectangle, and it says SEI, and there's a little space, and then there's an upper rectangle. And from what I understand, that the bottom rectangle represents your strength and stability, and the space in between represents the unknown. We've had a lot of unknowns. So how have you uncovered and embraced and moved forward and adapted to the new challenges of all the unknowns?
Thanks, Benny. Morning, everybody. So we did a rebranding last year, Benny, and I think that's an important distinction. It's a 54-year history that I think we're cognizant that to continue to change and evolve for the future, we're going to need to change and evolve. So we purposely put that branding out there to not lose sight of the foundation, but to really kind of try to challenge the culture and challenge ourselves that what we have done to be so successful for 54 years isn't going to be the same exact playbook. And that incorporates not just growth strategy, but how we think about talent, how we think about culture. So we've really been trying to challenge ourselves the last few years to think about how do we listen differently to our existing employees, to our clients, and look around to the outside ecosystem, because there is no blueprint to execute anymore in this kind of post-pandemic world. So I think we've been really diligent to say we know what our foundation is, but we're going to stay extremely open-minded as to what the future could hold, but really use empathy and listening as tools and strengths for how the company can evolve moving forward. And that's easier said than done sometimes.
No question about it. So Jason, you're director of Eisner-Amper. And certainly, we've had these very unusual last several years and has had a tremendous impact on the economy and businesses. So what are some of the most notable areas of untapped potential that you've been identifying for not only your business, but for the businesses that you work for?
So it's... So we see a lot of challenges with our clients in the overall supply chain, and we see opportunities where we tell our clients to identify partners to help leverage that and interconnect systems together to solve a lot of those opportunities. The last 2 years, we as a firm decided to take a big capital infusion from Tower Brook Capital. And what we did with that was we doubled down on M&A activities where we saw gaps within our firm and brought in more talent. We created a family office practice area where we're helping a lot of single and multifamily family offices. And then we also created an ESG advisory group where we saw there was a need, especially from a reporting perspective now, the SEC mandated a lot of companies to report ESG and cybersecurity initiatives. So we're helping clients go through that transition in terms of connecting systems and reporting correctly so they could see opportunities to pivot their business.
Great, and then we have Brad, who is the the market president for Ocean First Bank. So Brad, from the continuing supply chain struggles to rising interest rates, the war in Ukraine, the inflation and whatnot, there have been a lot of variables at play that have been negatively impacting the U.S. economy and businesses. So what trends are you identifying that are the most significant risk to organizations that you work with?
Thank you. Good morning. There are a lot of headwinds that you just mentioned there. We could probably talk for an hour about all the headwinds everyone's experiencing. I would say talking to our clients over the last couple years, particularly now, potentially going into a slowdown or recession, the biggest headwind has actually been with hiring and retaining employees. I hear that across the board in every single industry, whether it's manufacturing, retail, service companies, and developers here in Philadelphia. Companies have got to be more, as Ryan was mentioning, I think there's got to be a different way of looking at retaining employees. For example, our organization this year, in the middle of the year, gave a 5% increase to every employee making less than $100,000. That was to help them with inflation, but also for retaining employees. We've got another company that is a manufacturing company. They're lucky to have offices outside of Philadelphia, Charlotte, Atlanta, in the Lehigh Valley. They've been having struggles in every single one of their places hiring. It's held back their business. So what they've done is they've shifted their manufacturing to places where they can hire people. They've had better luck in North Carolina than Georgia, for example. So it's a matter of relooking at your businesses. I would say the other biggest headwind right now is interest rates. It's not that the interest rates right now are abnormally high. They're actually more normalized. But when the prime rate went from earlier this year around 3% to 6.25%, and it's likely to go up possibly another percentage this year, the shock at how fast it's gone up has been a challenge for businesses, particularly on the real estate side, where you've got developers that were building maybe a multifamily project. They're anticipating the interest rate at one point, and they can only raise rates as high as they can. So that's been an issue that businesses have had to deal with. A lot of working with banks, trying to lock in rates much further out than they would have to lock in their cost and potentially putting more money into projects.
And I can certainly relate to the whole issue as it relates to retaining and attracting new talent, and that's something that affects almost all of us here. And actually, I'd like for both Ryan and Jason to also talk about that a bit.
Yeah, something he mentioned, I think I'm getting this from all my clients, including ourselves, is the talent, right? Talent acquisition, talent management. You know, we made huge investments on top of M&A. But you know, we have a whole career campaign with all the major universities. We're leveraging our partners to really integrate with them and do staff augmentations. We even opened up a second office out of India in Dubai to help that talent acquisition.
And obviously, my mic doesn't work. There we go. See, that's what I get for sharing earlier. We're dealing with it too, right? We have 4,500 employees, and I think we have a short-term and a medium-term challenge, and they're different. We've actually done a really nice job, actually, with talent retention and acquisition. We've done some of the things that Brad said to try to really kind of over-invest in our employees. But I also think the remote work versus on-site conundrum is going to take a while to play itself out. So we are Monday and Friday work from home. Our employee base has really embraced that. I think there's an element of permanency to that. But a lot of our younger employees take some convincing to come to the office, and I have this debate on a weekly basis. I will no longer debate that the work can be done remotely. It's been empirically proven, but I will debate that culture is cultivated in person, and the calculus of those two things may be 2 days here, 3 days there. But I think, again, this concept of talking and listening, we've really tried to engage the workforce and talk to them about why they needed to be in the office. It's not because we think they're going to be more productive. We actually think it's a benefit for them. I've been at SEI 24 years. I know for sure I would not have been at SEI 24 years if I had worked from home the first 3 to 5 years, because I wouldn't have any connection to the culture. So I think that is, that's going to be a multi-year strategy and challenge for all of us.
It's interesting. At the Haverford Trust Company, we have 130 team members, and we too are 3 out of 5 working in the office. And it's not the younger people that we had an issue with. It's actually the more seasoned who said, I'm not developing my career. I'm really happy where I am in my place. I don't feel like I need to come into the office because I am very productive at home. And it was the young people who realized, well, first of all, they want to get out of their parents' bedroom, or they're in a 4-bedroom house with 3 other guys, and it's not a lot of fun to be in your bedroom all day. But they also recognize that they can't develop and build a career.
And one interesting thing, Benny, because I was the CIO of SEI when the pandemic hit, and a lot of the people that were deemed essential worked for me, so I felt it was the right thing to do for me to be in the office if they had to be in the office. I also have 5 kids that were homeschooled, so I thought it was good for me to be in the office. But what's a real interesting thing for the crowd and for us on the stage is I just got in the habit of being there on Monday and Fridays, because that's kind of what I did when the pandemic hit. And since I was named CEO in April, I got some feedback from some employees that said, when you're in the office every Friday, you are sending an unintended message that you don't support the work from home from Friday. And I wasn't consciously trying to do that, but I can understand why somebody would interpret that. So I now work from home on Friday, so it does evolve. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, you actually, when you have people come to office, you create a more innovative culture too.
Yes, you do.
It's hard to have these collaborative meetings and come up with new ideas remotely. I mean, that's just honest facts.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're like everybody else talking here. We've gone to 3 days, and I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. I think it's been a really good balance for the employees, and it helps them work-life balance. So, and you don't have to be in the office, but I do believe that 3 days are very important for the culture. And an interesting thing, so my Philadelphia team's at the table over here. Our Philadelphia office has been closed for a month and a half because we're actually expanding it. And I will tell you, I get calls every other day, when's it going to be open, when's it going to be open? Mm-hmm. Because they said it feels like the pandemic again, we're all at home and we want to get back in the office a couple days, which is, I think it's a great thing. It's very interesting though.
Yeah, there's no question about it. So, Brad, have you used, with the workforce being so stretched so thin, and the competition for talent being very high, as we talked about before, are there other things that you're doing to, with your workforce to ensure the retention and attracting the talent, and including automation and technology?
Yeah, well, the one I mentioned before is, giving the 5% raise, to all the employees below $100,000 in the organization. That was obviously to help retain and help them out. The other thing that's been happening in our industry from a technology standpoint, banking has changed a lot, not just post-pandemic. This was happening pre-pandemic. We've become very digital. You really don't need to go into a branch anymore. You can do everything on, not even on your computer, but on your phone. So we've been transitioning a lot of our retail employees to almost be like employees in an Apple store. They've all been trained in the digital technology. They've all been trained to help people. So when people come in, if they've got a problem with their iPhone or their Samsung phone and they need it, they're all trained to help them do that. And this has really been to help. First of all, it's given the employees another level of talent that they can use, and I think it's more interesting for them, and it's helping us so we don't need as many employees on the retail side.
So Jason, staying on the technology theme. So you have over 25 years of experience as a technology and risk management executive, and you've also been named Global IBM Champion by IBM on AI and automation and blockchain last year. So from your perspective, what are some of the risks and opportunities leaders tend to overlook when it comes to technology?
Well, I would say within the last 2 years, leaders had, some major aha moments, right, where digital transformation has sped up faster than, what's happened in the last 10 years, right? So, we integrate innovation and our digital culture internally and externally within our clients. So, we actually drink our own Kool-Aid also. So we do a lot of automation, AI, data analytics, but it's more about solving the business case, what our clients are actually having challenges with. And most of the time it's just having systems, connect together, or it could be like, making workflows much more efficient. A lot of challenges I see clients having today still is just, people are doing more with less. So trying to solve that through, leveraging our technologies to help enable that, right? So, automating entire workflows together, connecting systems, creating digital strategy and client journey for our clients to provide more value to their clients.
Thank you. Ryan, As companies innovate and invest on multiple fronts, from cybersecurity to talent, how are you measuring the success of investments that don't have a direct impact on the bottom line?
That's a great question, Vinny. I mean, I think some of it is just a recognition that the cost of failure is so severe that you can't get too hung up, I think, in trying to specifically measure some of these things. So the investments we may make in data privacy and cybersecurity, they're just necessary, and we want to be ahead of the curve of those because the impact of failing there is so significant that it would outweigh anything you tried to do to try to measure whether or not you were getting the right return. And I think actually, to what Jason just said too, there needs to be a focus on speed, right? The challenge of long-standing organizations really being able to try to migrate from legacy technology to more cloud-based technology that may have a large price tag on it, but it may be a necessary price tag to be able to compete in the future against firms that maybe can move more quickly and more nimbly, and there's a balance there. So I think we try to look at things about saying, you know, what are the investments we just need to make in the business foundationally to stay ahead, to innovate moving forward, and try not to get too hung up on ascribing specific ROI metrics there.
Yeah, and I'd just like to piggyback on what Ryan said, because we're both in financial services, and you know, both our firms probably invest tons of money into cybersecurity and to protect us. You don't see a direct return. I mean, we've got a room in our headquarters. In there, it's very interesting. There's TVs all around, and it shows all the attacks that are happening from all over the world. And when you go in there, it looks like something from a sci-fi movie, but you know, they're seeing attacks from Russia, from Iran, and it's actually very kind of daunting when you look at it. It's cost a lot of money, and you say it's not hitting our bottom line, but if you think about if we had a cyber attack and it took our organization down for even a couple days, the cost to that would be huge, and the reputational risk would be huge. So I think you've got to look at those very differently, and it's an area that I think ourselves, but I think most financial companies invest a lot of money. You have to.
Agreed.
So Ryan, and then Brad, if you want to answer this afterwards as well, think about it. So given the new modalities of working and doing business, what do leaders need to unlearn to ensure success going forward?
I think that one's easy for me. I mean, I think when we go back to what we were talking about earlier, leaders need to unlearn that the way that they did things are ways that you like to create your work day and do your style is your style. It can't be imparted on everybody else in the organization. I think this constant phase of listening and really trying to stay open-minded. I mean, what Brad said earlier, like we keep saying, I use the word a level of permanency with Monday and Friday. You said for the foreseeable future. That's got to be a constant dialogue inside the organization and outside the organization to understand what's going on. It can't be one person or one executive's team's, I think, hardline view of the world.
Yeah, and I think you've got to do that both, as Ryan said, with your employees, but you also have to do it with your customers because things are changing for them as well.
Good point.
You know, I'll give you an example. You know, it used to be in lending that when you were lending on a construction project, you lent on what was called work in place. You'd only put the money out when that part of the building was up. You never used to lend on what was called stored materials, where if they brought in steel and things like that, if it wasn't already in, you wouldn't lend against that. Well, we've listened to our customers, and because the supply chain issues are so severe now, it's hard to get those materials in, they're bringing in. We've listened to our customers and said, okay, we're gonna change the way we're gonna lend to you. We actually encourage you to bring it in early and lend on that. And that's just one example of not, it's, you know, as a banker, you're taught, you know, I was taught for 30 years, you never do that. But this is a different world, so you've got to listen to your employees, but also your customers to help them adapt.
I want to add to that. What I see frequently is leaders have a challenge changing, you know, their perception of what the company culture is, and they have to allow time for their team members to be more innovative, allow them time to, you know, spark, you know, and ideate. So I think that's important for you know, all businesses. You know, it'll allow them to help, you know, the overall business models pivot and you know, really get some more value from that.
And just pivoting off of the word innovation, you know, what are some of the innovations that you've seen with some of the companies that you work with that aren't just technologically based?
Yeah, so I would say ground roots, design thinking strategies, just thinking of the art of the possible. I have some of my team members here. All of my team members, when they come in, they go through design thinking workshops, really help understand, the challenges that we're trying to solve. And, no idea is, beyond reach, right? We just have to look at it from a business perspective and see if we have enough resources and see how it could integrate into overall, business strategy.
Very good. And any one of the three of you who want to answer the question. So what are your firms doing and what are the companies that you work with doing to recruit and retain diverse workforce? And diversity, not just in color, but in all terms of the word.
I'll take that first. So we make a huge investment, again, in talent acquisition, talent management, even professional development. We're actually, we take a position where we're constantly changing our professional development roadmap for our team members every 6 months, just to make sure that they're more innovative and relevant to today's changes.
Right.
I'll go different. I think we're doing a lot of the things that other firms are doing with relationships and partnerships with local universities. I'll go a different direction, though. I think culturally we're trying to create more space for people to feel comfortable to challenge and ask for and demand more transparency. So I think as I think about diversity, equity, and inclusion as a CEO, we have a new director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're monitoring things. I'm really trying to create more of a culture of accountability and transparency where every employee can feel comfortable challenging and asking what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that is all kind of right out in the open.
Great. Brad, there's been a great deal of discussion about the possibility of a recession, especially as rates continue to rise. With monetary policy tightening, how should businesses reevaluate their financial decisions, and what's the biggest risk that you see that them taking?
Yeah, this is the first time in my career that it's been so well publicized and talked about that we're probably going into a recession. If you think about most other recessions, even the Great Recession, in hindsight you saw the signs, but you didn't have all this talk leading up to it. I think one big advantage that businesses have right now is the economy is actually still going very well. It's very strong. Jamie Dimon was talking earlier this week, and he said, he thought that we'd be going into a slowdown or some type of recession in 6 to 9 months. I don't know if that's right or not, but if it is, business people have had a lot of heads up on things that they can do, which is different than prior recessions. So having done this a long time, companies that tend to do well through recessions have lower debt, they've got cash reserves, and they're able to cut expenses when needed. So what I would say businesses should be doing now is looking at their business and saying, if we go into one, we've got a heads up, what can we start doing? You can start reducing debt, building cash reserves, and companies don't necessarily need to cut expenses if they're going well, but you should start identifying now business plans on if things slow down, where you would make cuts, and you can do all this in advance, which I think is a big advantage that businesses have now over prior recessions that kind of hit them, and then they have to start doing this when it's happening.
Ryan,
yeah, this is probably a little Darwinian, but I think there's a little bit of healthiness to what happens because the business model got a little bit out of whack, I think, the last 5 to 7 years. For a lot of organizations, it was revenue at any price. That was the only metric that was really monitored. It was all top line. Nobody really wanted to focus. And we're a publicly traded company, so I would see that. I think we got unfairly punished for 5 or 6 years because we didn't have the top line growth that the market expected, but we're an extremely profitable company with a great balance sheet. So I actually think what Brad said is absolutely right. This is a perfect time for businesses to be bold, to really be thoughtful and deliberate about areas they want to invest. I do think you need to be judicious about expenses, but this is not a time just to hunker down and do nothing because you're not going to be able to catch up if you do nothing for 2 or 3 years. But I do think it's a great opportunity to step back and look at the business model and see how sustainable that business model is moving forward.
Yeah, I would almost say that, if I was, for businesses and what we're telling our businesses, and we're telling them that now, you should have 2 business plans that you're working on. You should have one, because things might not slow down. So you should have your business plan if things don't slow down, as Ryan said, to continue to invest, but you should have that second business plan to say, okay, if things slow down, what are you going to do, and have it in place now so you're not waiting. Because if we do go into slowdown, we've seen what happens, the companies will need to cut, and they should be working on those two simultaneous business plans.
We have 2 minutes left, so I want each of you to take 30 seconds and just any final last thoughts, words, piece of advice. Jason.
Yeah, just circling back on the state of the economy now. Yeah, we definitely have advance notice now, so it's going to help us stabilize our business, right? We're actually in efforts now to figure out what does that look like. I would say leverage your partners, right? As you look at the supply chain, think of it as a value chain, how you could leverage technology, how you could leverage your partners to help you pivot, and wherever the market has in the future, it'll allow you to be agile enough to change your business model.
Brad?
I would kind of piggyback on something Ryan said, that I think we've talked about this, work-life balance, and people, we don't know how long it's going to last, 3 days a week or we'll go back longer. I just want to say I hope we don't go back to being at home, because, Brian, I've got 6 kids.
Wow, you're one of the few that beats me. Well done.
Yeah, so I never want to go back to that again.
My kids are out of the house.
Yeah. So I'll finish on two notes. Back maybe to your diversity, equity, inclusion. I think what's going to get the best out of companies is if we could all truly figure out how people can bring their best selves to work every day. And some of that is about work-life balance. And some of that is about feeling like they do have a platform and a voice and can listen. Some of that is about looking around and seeing people that look like them and that they can feel comfortable. So I think there has to be a real focus on that, and it has to be sincere. And then I guess I would end on, the keynote speaker said it's a great time to be in Philadelphia. With a Friday night Phillies game, a Saturday night Phillies game, and a Sunday night Eagles game, Monday morning will determine whether or not it's a good time to be in Philadelphia.
Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. Well, that's our panel. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you.
Fabulous. Let's give panel one another round of applause. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Michael Young, the President and CEO of Temple University Health System, to the stage to present panel number 2. As he's making his way to the stage, let's give Michael a round of applause, please.
Good morning. I'm Mike Young. I'm CEO of Temple University Health System. And I'm going to change my presentation slightly after hearing the first group. Those of you who know me know I'm a pretty straight shooter. So let me start by saying healthcare is about 20% of the economy, of the GDP. Hospitals are about, and hospitals, broad definition of hospitals, are about 40% of the 20, so that's 8%. So hospitals had the worst year in 200 years last year. 75% of the health systems around America lost money. When the Enquirer does their report in the next week or two, you'll be stunned by the magnitudes of cash flow losses in the health systems across Philadelphia. And so, our panel is about balance. So at Temple University Health, we try to balance 3 things. Access to care for our actual patients, and we exist to train students, medical students, nursing students, pharmacy students, and you have to have patience to train all those specialties, and at the same time, if the delivery model is not successful, there's no money to support the academic mission, the training mission. So then the third part of the balance is assets. and you don't think of healthcare systems as much, having the same discussion as the last panel about acquisition of assets, use of assets, age of plant, those kind of activities, but we're a $2.6 billion entity. So balancing these three things, taking care of 2 million patient visits a year, maintaining $1.5 billion physical plant, having the cutting edge technology brought in for the $170 million research portfolio that's split between the medical school and Fox Chase. How many of you knew Temple had a $170 million bioscience research portfolio? Anybody know that? $170 million and growing rapidly. So a couple years ago when we were thinking about divesting Fox Chase, back to the asset part of that triad, we evaluated what it would mean for the community, and to be honest, today Fox Chase would be closed if we had sold it. And so last year, our Fox Chase had a net income of $55 million. So in 3 years, we made a very significant turnaround, and with that $55 million, what have we done? $50 million of capital replacement, $5 million of researcher acquisition. So every day and every minute we talk about this balance. Now let's go back to the beginning. I talked about how bad 2022 was for the healthcare world. Now, we made $62 million in operating income, which is good when everybody else had negative operating income, but it's down from our $163 million the year before. So that's $100 million less in cash that we have coming into the door that we were not planning on not coming into the door. So how do you balance meeting the, you guys talk about personnel shortages. Last year, we spent $50 million on agency personnel. That's just the agency piece. We had budgeted 20. So 2.5 times more, and so we're seeing nurse salaries increase by 14%, some specialty areas increasing 16% off a revenue base that's driving increasing 6%. So we don't see significant improvement in health system bottom line in 23 or 24 because of these challenging activities. But that said, very much like the bankers who talked about increasing, we actually increased our head count last year. We actually increased our caregiver head count because we really invest in two things, technology and people. And that's part of that triad balance. So while many institutions laid folks off during COVID, we kept everybody. And, to be honest, in Philadelphia, the COVID mortality rate is much better. Temple University, the patients that we treated, had a 25% lower mortality than other patients across the state of Pennsylvania, 25% better because of some access to drugs that we had earlier than many others. So the challenge in healthcare is how do we reinvigorate the investment and the growth that we've all seen over the last 10 years after this terrible last 18 months and another probably 12 to bad 18 months. How do you balance that? So our strategy really is leverage what you do well across the entire Temple University platform. So we've reinvigorated and invested in the pharmacy school through Fox Chase because Fox Chase has the capital, and the pharmacy school helps us develop new drugs. Colleges right now and universities are a little short of cash, so we fund them and we fund their research portfolio to grow. So we're looking at ways to leverage the School of Nursing or the School of Medicine. They have the Fells Institute, which is a cancer-driven research center. that we now staff out of Fox Chase, and we're capitalizing that to $5 million a year additional capital over the next 3 years. So that leverages what Fox Chase is doing, it levers what the medical school is doing in recruiting, and it levers the patient care, the access to new drugs and new technology. So we have to really lever our capital spends where we used to look for 3 or 4x return on investment. Now we're looking at 5 to 6. It's really getting hard. Let me say that again, it's really getting hard in the healthcare world. The other thing is we're looking at better uses of capital. Health systems are very capital intense, and over the years, to be honest, we've wasted a lot of money. So our Chestnut Hill acquisition, for example, so for the cost of acquiring Chestnut Hill and turning it around back into the black is about 65% of what it would cost to rebuild that capital capacity new. And so for us, it's a capital substitution strategy. We can get a new market area, we can get more physical capacity, we can get more caregivers with a lesser capital investment than if we built that facility on our own. I think the other opportunity, you talked about DEI and equity. The healthcare world talks a lot about population health. Temple Health System has been doing that very aggressively for about 10 years through our HMO arm, which we've sold to Jefferson last year, but that doesn't mean population health goes away. So our population, we have about 100,000 covered lives under risk, which is a very large portfolio, and 85% of that 100,000 are minority patients. So we look at their whole spectrum of life. If you fix their gallbladder and you send them home, but they can't afford antibiotics, 8 days later they'll come back with a wound infection and you have to pay for that, so it's more expensive. But it's also very bad for the patient. So we look at the entire spectrum of that patient's life. Do they have food? Do they have a primary care doctor? Do they have somebody to call? Do they have access to drugs? And it's a much broader perspective. It's kind of interesting because at Temple, we've been doing that for a long, long time. And so we're kind of quiet leaders in that. The rest of the healthcare world is really starting to talk about that. And then lastly, this leverage and integration between the university and the health system is really, I think, an exciting opportunity for Temple. We call it Big T, which is the university. All the schools have historically been separate silos, and now driving together with the health system and the medical school helping the pharmacy school. The new dean of nursing is one of our star nursing executives who we sent down to the university to revamp the School of Nursing, which is good for us because now we can expand the size. So I think in healthcare you'll see the terms leverage, controlled growth, and struggle. I think, as well as we did last year, we actually lost money in the first quarter for 23 for all the reasons I talked about. Agency costs are up, labor costs are up, supply costs are up. I have $10 million of linear accelerators. There are these giant machines that spin up electrons and zap your tumors, and they're sitting on the loading dock waiting for 2 $5 chips. I'm not kidding. And so the company that makes the chips can sell 10 million chips to GM, or they can sell 500 chips to an Irish company that makes linear accelerators. So their priority is over here. So in the technological world, we're seeing some challenge as well. So at the end of the day, it's the balancing act of our 3 missions: patient care, academics, and asset balance. So that's the world of healthcare. It's challenging, which, to be honest, makes it exciting. And It's really allowed us to, in my 5-year history, now when I look at resumes for people who want to come to Temple, it's spectacular. Our new lawyer is from Dana-Farber. Our CFO is from UPMC. We had dinner with a candidate last night from Harvard. So Temple Health is on the rise. Stronger people who have more expertise, bring in more skill sets. 72% of our leadership, 72% of our leadership is diverse, up from 52% when I got here 5 years ago. Our lawyer at Fox Chase ran the vaccine division for Moderna last year. So can you imagine the experiences he had? So he elected to come to, it's like, why do you want to come here? Why are you talking to me? And they talk about the exciting things that we're doing. Our new head of business development, who helps us partner our IP and sell our IP, comes from City of Hope, where she worked for 10 years. And City of Hope has $400 million a year of intellectual property sales, $400 million a year. And she goes, I want to be a significant piece of Temple's growth. So because of what we're doing, we're able to recruit very well. We let those folks do what they do. And one of the previous speakers talked about motivating people. Our belief and my belief as CEO, and I've been a CEO for 35 years, I take credit for all the failure. And all our folks take credit for success. And the board says, whose idea was that? And if it was a failure, I raise my hand and I say, that was my fault. Now, half the board members know what that means, and the other half write that down in their book and remember that for the next go-round, but that's okay. So imagine if you take the fear of failure away from your folks, what they can produce. So that's Temple Health. Today, it's been a wonderful journey the last 5 years, and we'll turn it over to the next speaker. Thanks.
Wonderful. I'd like to welcome our second panel to the stage. And our panel is led by David Jacobson, the principal of Clifton Larson Allen. I'll let him introduce his panel. And panel 2 panelists, please make your way to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here with this esteemed panel of higher education leaders, which I'll introduce as they come to the stage. We have Marilyn Wells, Chancellor of Penn State Brandywine. We have Chris Domes, President of Newman University, Brenda Allen, President, Lincoln University, and Mike Middleman, President, Salish University. Here, go ahead, I'll stand. There you go.
Oh, there's a seat over here.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. We have a little musical chairs.
We'll get it figured out, don't worry. So we're going to be discussing a topic that frankly needs some discussion, aligning education with economic development and student demands. And I'm going to start off with a question. Really, this is for all the panelists, and we can start with you, Chris, and work our way down the line. You know, the economy is evolving, and with that comes new industries, new companies, new expansions. For what industries within the greater Philadelphia region are you anticipating growth, and what curriculum changes or new programs are you pursuing to match that growth?
Good morning. Thanks. We heard from a number of panelists earlier today that focused on areas that certainly we're focused on at Newman University, and that's healthcare, health sciences, certainly around the area of technology, cyber in particular, and areas that really focus on helping businesses, helping the industries that are in Philadelphia to thrive. And so we're really leaning on really developing people that are going to ultimately go out into these organizations and help lift up Philadelphia and the region in the areas that we understand to be important. At Newman University, where over 50% of our students are in health sciences, growing number of students are in business and technology. Those are important areas, and certainly we've heard that today here on the panel so far.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So I believe that we are preparing students for one of the most uncertain economic times that we have experienced in our lifetime. And so our economy is dynamic, it's changing very rapidly, it's fueled by science and technology. And so at Lincoln University, what we are endeavoring to do is to prepare students to be able to tool and retool as this economic system warrants. And the thing that we have to remember is that we don't even know what the new jobs are going to be in the next 3 to 4 years. They are evolving every day. And so the goal of education really has to be to prepare students for that uncertainty. And so how do you do that? You really invest in development of strong intellectuals, problem solvers, good communicators, set of essential skills that will actually drive you through your lifetime and both your professional and your personal lives. And so in the liberal arts context, that's been our focus, to just say, we want you to be able to be anything that you please, but in order to do that, you have to be a strong intellectual and really very interpersonally savvy.
Hi, at Salus University, I got to tell you, my crystal ball is a little fuzzy about the future. But we're a little different than the other schools up here. We're a graduate health science education university. So we're training the health scientists, the clinicians for the future. And as we look at that, we've been in Philadelphia for over 100 years. Our optometry program has defined the way optometry is practiced nationally and internationally. And what we're doing is we're looking at our curriculum and we're seeing how can we assure that our students are ready to meet the needs of the future. For instance, we just started an orthotics and prosthetics program at the university because we see that because of there's an epidemic of obesity and diabetes, unfortunately there's a huge requirement for these types of practitioners. But like the others, we're training our students to think on their feet. It's really important that they are flexible and that when they get into the healthcare system, they're not working in silos. We teach them interprofessionally so that they learn to work in an integrated healthcare system, of which unfortunately in America it's not exactly where it needs to be. But our students are taught to lead and to think outside the box so that they can influence the way healthcare is practiced. So in Philadelphia, we're looking at health equity. We're looking at how do we assure that underserved populations are taken care of. We're in the Philadelphia public schools pretty much every day to assure that students are getting appropriate vision care and hearing care to ensure that they can end up at the undergraduate schools so that they can be progressive and they can be productive when they get out of school.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. And despite the fact that we all have black on today, we're very optimistic about the future. At Penn State Brandywine, we certainly see growth areas, and we're preparing a highly diverse talent pipeline for that. And in fact, that's been a part of Penn State's land grant mission since we were founded in 1867. We heard Michael in his opening remarks talk about leveraging what you do well. And at Penn State, what we do really well is our structure of the 24 Commonwealth campuses across the state, which are designed to meet the economic needs and the community needs of their region. And that was one of our very unique factors that attracted our new president, Nita Bendaputi. So at Penn State Brandywine, where do we see the growth industries and what are we doing to meet them? We see that in certainly, as we've heard, the information sciences and technology area. And we've launched new degree programs, Bachelor of Science degree programs in cybersecurity, analytics, and operations, as well as information sciences and technology. We've been very proud of our corporate partnerships, but one I'd like to highlight that we're especially proud of this year is our deepening partnership with SAP, the global software firm. And through our partnership with SAP, we're giving unique opportunities to our students, and we're close to 50% diverse students, where we're focusing on women in cybersecurity, research with impact, attending national conferences and competitions, and access to exclusive online software. Engineering is also another area where we see growth, and this fall we've launched a new Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, and we've attracted faculty from around the world, contributing to the growth in the Philadelphia region. Our Bachelor of Science in Engineering programs is uniquely designed with a multidisciplinary curriculum, and we do that in response to the engineering firms in our region and producing the talent with the specific skills that they need. I'd also like to highlight one way we're meeting the growth demand is with our new Bachelor of Science degree in Project and Supply Chain Management to meet to prepare professionals for the distribution and logistics. One of our faculty has established a relationship with the Hague University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands, where our students can participate in a virtual exchange program where they're learning practical workplace and international skills. And finally, I'll just top it off with, to meet the business sector, specifically, we have a new fast-track MBA program with one of the Commonwealth campuses, the Penn State Great Valley, and also our new curriculum in entrepreneurship. So those are just a few of the areas where we see growth. We're not in the eds and meds sector at Penn State Brandywine, but the other Commonwealth campuses and University Park campus are. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for those responses. The second question, also geared towards all of you, and maybe this time we'll start with you, Marilyn, and work our way backwards, if you're not out of breath yet. Student expectations are changing, and the return on investment for higher education degrees has received criticism in the media. We constantly hear about the value proposition of higher education. What are some of the reasons, from your perspectives, that higher education remains an excellent investment, not just for students and communities, but for the local business community as well? And the second part to that is, how do you raise awareness of the value of higher education in this new landscape of declining enrollment?
Thank you. That's definitely a higher ed question because it's very long. So as I mentioned, core to who we are and what we do at Penn State and Penn State Brandywine is about access and affordability. And with President Bendaputi's arrival, we're really refocusing and deepening our focus on that through our new tuition structures and tuition models, as well as growing our need-based and dream-based scholarships. And with our access grants that are specifically for families who earn less than $75,000 a year. Kind of adjoined to that, when we look at the changing demographics of our nation, both age-wise as well as race and ethnicity-wise, and other first generation and so forth, educational equity is a top priority at Penn State Brandywine. And with the changing demographics, higher education remains a very real and good investment in students, their families, the communities, as well as the business economy. So we're doing quite a bit around access and affordability, as well as educational equity, specifically in areas focusing on pathways to careers, and also in giving, again, the students the skills that they need for today's world. So,
for us, it's a little bit different because by the time we get the students, they've come out of undergraduate school, so they've seen the value of the undergraduate education, but now they progress to health sciences, to graduate education. And all of our students get jobs. And we are very deliberate when we're looking at our program, especially as we bring on a new program, as far as what is the return on investment for our students. We don't want to charge tuition, then have students come out of our university $200,000 in debt if they're only going to earn $35,000 a year in a job. So we're very selective about that. The other thing I think that we have done extremely well, and I'll credit my folks at DEI and the deans, is that we've established a summer enrichment program so that we can bring people who are economically challenged into the health professions so that they can get high-paying jobs once they leave Salis, whether it be with a master's degree or one of our doctoral degrees. But I think once the students arrive at our doorstep, they certainly understand the value of the education, and more importantly, the value of the service that they're going to provide to our communities.
Good morning. So I think it's a very hard question to answer because the value of education is so diverse and beyond degree, right? And so I think one of the problems we have in society is that we think of college and just the purpose of college is to get a degree, and that degree is in something, right? And we never really pay as much attention to the overall personal, social growth that college invests in individuals. And so, we think that higher education, especially for the populations that I serve, Lincoln University is the first degree-granted historically black college in the nation. We were educating people of African descent while black people in this country were in bondage. And so we understood very early the importance of education as one of the factors that could actually help to be a great equalizer in all sorts of things in our lives. And we can never, I think, undermine or reduce the impact of education on just the social, emotional, developmental growth of people in general. But again, if we think about it from an economic standpoint only, black people who attend historically black colleges tend to make about $1 million more than black people who attend any other kind of institution, even Ivy Leagues, over a lifetime. So there's something about the investment in that education that really sets people of African descent off into the world to be not just only successful in their personal lives, but in their professional lives as well. And so I think when we talk about why higher education, and for us particularly why a historically black college, we just have so many statistics over the course of almost 200 years that show that investment in that education has a return. Well, you have a return on investment in that education that is unmet by any other kind of developmental opportunity for African American people in this country.
I'll just kind of wrap up. I think one of the most important questions we have to ask is the question of accessibility and affordability. The business model of higher education is under attack because we've got challenges around the business model and about how we actually deliver education in an affordable way. And if you talk about the issue of whether higher education is worth it, if you ask a first-generation student who's going to a university or college, is college worth it? They will ultimately say yes, because it's my access out of maybe poverty, access out of challenging situation, whereas you ask a second or third generation student whose parents and grandparents went to college, those answers are different. And I think often we have to think about what are the institutions that are providing access, and many of the institutions, all of the institutions on this stage are doing that. At Newman University, 63% of our first year students this year are first generation. For a private university, that's rare, it's unheard of. And also about 45% of our students are Pell eligible, which means their families are making under $30,000 or $40,000 a year. So in terms of access, it's really incumbent upon higher education to try to push the needle so that those students have access, because that's their path to success and opportunity. And I think one of the things that we often get, as we struggle with, is this notion of workforce development versus higher education. And workforce development is really talking about immediate access to jobs. We have to fill these roles. We got to get a student or a person in an opportunity where they're training up and getting into a role. Where I think higher education is training them certainly and developing them for their first job, but ultimately we're developing them for their 7th, 8th, or 9th job in their lifetime. Because hopefully they're lifelong learners, they're critical thinkers, they know how to speak, they understand how to navigate and solve problems. That's what we're creating. So I think the issues about investment, about making sure that the conversation around affordability and access is pointed in the right direction. Because sometimes I think we pull everyone together, including higher education institutions, under one umbrella. They're all too expensive, access doesn't happen, what is it worth it? And the answer, in our opinions, in my opinion, is absolutely it's worth it, and particularly if you focus on the populations that need the help and need access and affordability to make their dreams come true.
Thank you. Marilyn, this next one is for you. Earlier this year at Penn State Brandywine, you helped cut the ribbon, mark the opening of the Brandywine Launchbox. Can you tell us a little bit about the Launchbox and what this is going to add to Philadelphia's economy?
Thank you. The Penn State Brandywine Launchbox is about launching innovation and entrepreneurship. It's not about lunches or other kinds of things, or launch pads or kinds of things. So the Brandywine Launchbox, ours is located in the downtown business district of Lansdowne and is contributing to the activity investment in Lansdowne's growing creative economy, another growing business sector in this area. The Brandywine Launchbox is located in the Utility Works makerspace. We're partnered with the Lansdowne Economic Development Corporation, and we are offering programs to early stage entrepreneurs of all ages, such as our Idea Test Lab, our one-on-one startup coaching program, pitch competitions, and our Black Founders Panels discussion series. The Launchbox, it would not be possible without with our business intelligence. We have an advisory board comprised of 14 business leaders across the entrepreneurial ecosystem, as well as our many community and civic partners who have been funders. So we're in the early stage of our early stage entrepreneur support and look forward to partnering with you in many ways. We're also making it available to our students and faculty on campus and bringing that triad together in all of those kinds of ways. So that's a bit about the Launchbox.
Great, thank you. Mike, Salus University, your headline is The Future of Health Science Since 1919. So you've obviously been at it for a long time. How significant has the demand been for your students in healthcare? And what are the particular sectors within healthcare that are most in need of workers or which you're anticipating an increasing need moving forward?
Thanks, Dave, for the question. I would say all of them. We are living in a population that's aging. So if you look at optometry, audiology, I already mentioned orthotics and prosthetics. We have speech and language pathology. We have physician assistant programs and occupational therapy. Every one of those programs is in demand because the population needs that. And there's another piece of this that we're also looking at, behavioral health. We pick all of the programs that we have at Salus very deliberately. They're all related to rehabilitation and assuring that people can really work at their highest possible level. As I mentioned, the Optometry Program has led the way in the nation since 1919. We were the first doctorally trained optometrists. Our founding father, Albert Fitch, wanted optometry to be established on the medical model. We were the first school to do that. Consequently, all the schools in the country do that now. All of our programs have been designed to assure that we can take care of the populations that we're not just caring for here in Philadelphia, but caring for nationally. Our optometry program, for instance, is the only program in the country that has a 3-year optometry curriculum. And we've done that for a couple of reasons. One, we want to save tuition, and we want to be able to get providers out into the network as quickly as possible. There's a shortage of optometrists in the country today, about 30,000. So consequently, we're trying to educate the population about what optometrists do, and then get them trained and get them out into the population as quickly as possible. Our audiology program, same thing. It's characteristically a 4-year program. We've developed a 3-year program so we can pipeline these providers into the population as quickly as possible. Very often are we looking at the landscape of healthcare and looking at what would be the next program that the population needs. And frankly, we're looking at things like health informatics now, clinical exercise physiology. These are all programs that are required. And as I said, we always look at the return on investment for our students. So if they're going to pay us tuition, we want to make sure they can get out the door and make a living wage, more than a living wage, right outside right after graduation. And I'm happy to say that up to now, we've been very, very successful with that.
Thank you. Brenda, you talked a little bit earlier about Lincoln University being the first degree-granting historically black college, and Philadelphia is actually home to the first two historically black colleges, Lincoln and Cheney University. But just to expand a little bit, why are HBCUs so critical to the future of Philadelphia's economy, and what are some ways you're engaging with industry to meet workforce needs?
Thank you. Time with this mic here. Okay. So yeah, great. Pennsylvania is the home of the first two historically black colleges in the nation, and I think that it is one of the best defining characteristics of Pennsylvania, but I guess you all would think that's what I would think. But anyway, if we look at the power and the impact of historically black colleges, we know that there are about 105 HBCUs nationwide. We account for only about 3% of all higher education institutions in this country, yet we account for 20 to 25% of all the degrees earned by African Americans. And so we know that that impact is great. Historically black colleges account for 25% of all African Americans who are in STEM. I read a statistic the other day that says 80% of all black judges had some journey through an HBCU. About 50% doctors, physicians, and 50% dentists all have a start in historically black colleges. And so we outperform our size among the pack. So as we think about what all the panelists have said today, everyone talks about being really concerned about DEI and creating a space for diverse voices. And you know, we know that diversity is important in the business model because it really is the coming together of unique perspectives and outlooks that actually create novel solutions. And as we're looking for novel solutions for almost everything today, the more people we can bring to the table, bring into that conversation, I think the better off we are as a nation, because we are providing a space for people to provide what their life experiences and their cultures have given them insight to. And most of the time, getting to that table means that you have to be prepared. And so if we just look at the historical significance and impact of historically black colleges on producing people who can engage at the highest level in any arena that they find themselves, and how that is still sort of the statistic for us. If we were going out of style or losing our value added, we would not still be outperforming any other institution when it comes to producing black excellence. And so I think as we look to create these diverse workforce, where we look to sort of increase the different kinds of perspectives that we have at the table in our corporations and in our businesses, we have to be more mindful of making sure that we engage historically black colleges, tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions in our recruitment and in our mentoring and cultivation sort of processes. So for Lincoln University, that means creating relationships with industries. And so we are now very actively engaged in creating opportunities for industries that are in the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area to become partners with us at our university. These institutions have created internships for our students. They come to our campus, they do mentoring. We are working with different corporations to actually build pipelines into jobs. We've had some connections with some groups who are not just interested in our current students, but in trying to reach out to our alums, especially recent alums who may be looking to change industries. And so someone said it earlier, partnerships, relationships, I think are the way to build any kind of progress. But if you are especially interested in DEI, having some relationships, some very integral relationships with historically black colleges, tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions can really help you to get that diversity that everyone seems to crave. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Brenda. And Chris, you know, there's been some very exciting things happening at Newman lately. You've doubled the size of your campus by adding 56 acres. You're developing an on-campus hotel. How are you hoping these steps and others will help the university fully realize its residential and campus environment potential from the perspectives of both students and employer needs?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think we basically have three objectives, and I think if you look at, again, the higher education business model, we're looking at diversifying revenue, opportunities for auxiliary revenue. The hotel is an example. Other developments we're doing as a result of the acquisition of the land that we were able to acquire. Also meeting the student needs of our residential campus, really important for the future of the institution. Also growing enrollment in other areas, building our capacity, particularly around graduate education, online education, developing those opportunities for the adult market as well as the graduate market to access Newman higher education. We also are an institution that's always meeting the needs of students on the margins. I mentioned our numbers around first-generation students, minority-serving institution with about 45% of our students of color. We have students who are economically challenged, so we're continuing to meet the needs of that population. And if you look ahead at the demographics, students graduating from high school are mostly represented, significant numbers are represented in those populations. And as the demographics shift, we have to make sure as an institution that we're doing everything we can to meet those student needs. As the others mentioned, we also are making sure our students are connected to the workplace. We know that most families, when they walk onto a college campus today, they're asking a couple of key questions. If I invest in this education, what's going to happen? Where am I going to go? What kind of opportunities will there be once I move my way through this education? It's very important to have internship opportunities, experiential learning, partnerships, pathways to organizations and companies so that students see themselves not just simply as a student for 4 years or 3 years, but they see themselves as a person that's finding their way in a pathway to something beyond the education they're receiving. That's really, really important, particularly for first generation and minority students. And so you all can help in that way. You help by offering internship opportunities for students. You help by providing job opportunities for young people. And keeping the talent in Philadelphia is really important. So having jobs that students can go to, companies and organizations they're attracted to, is very, very key to success, not only for all of you, but all of us as well.
Well, I want to express, we're at our time, it went by quickly, but I want to express my thanks to all the panelists. Please join me in a round of applause for this morning's panelists.
Good job.
Great job. Thank you, Chris. Let's give the panel another round of applause. And now I'm back, and I'm staying back because I will be moderating our third panel. And so at this time, can I welcome my panelists to join me at the stage for Energy Crunch, the growing demand for energy amid global instability and how it's fueling green innovation. Larry DePompey, the Senior Director of Commercial and Green Initiatives from WGL Energy. Ken Gardner, the Partner of Strategies and Transactions from Ernst & Young. Jackie Bliss, the Chief Consumer Officer for Vicinity Energy. And Leonard Gardner, I believe no relationship with Ken, I think that we checked. We were going to check 23andMe to see if there was any Gardner in distant cousins. The Vice President of the East Region for NRG Home. Please give my panelists a round of applause. Let's see, testing. And we're working, great. So I am honored to be moderating this panel, and I have some really wonderful industry experts joining me on stage. From geopolitics, green energy initiatives, local and national commitments, to obtaining carbon neutrality, the energy industry's adaptability has been tested as of late. We have so much to cover, so I want to dive into it. But first, I'd like to start off with a little bit of a lightning round for you to jazz things up a little bit. because we have some people who are joining us from the area and some people who are joining us from outside of the area. So, are you watching the Phillies, the Eagles, both, or neither? Larry, I'll start with you.
Oh, I'm going to say both. Even if I'm not, I'm going to say both.
That's probably safe.
Both.
Same.
What he said. What he said.
There's only one answer to that question.
Oh, because Jackie's joining us from Boston, so should I call her out? No. Sorry, Jackie. And is it Phillies, Eagles, or both, or neither?
Oh, both.
Both. Okay, fine. We're all in agreement. Good. Okay, then we've passed the test and we can continue on with our discussion. So let's look back a little bit as we set the stage to look further into the discussion. So during 2021, U.S. retail electricity prices rose at its fastest rate since 2008. In what ways is inflation and the flux of prices impacting the energy market and specifically green initiatives, and what should we expect in the near term? I'll toss it out to the group. Who would like to be the brave soul to tackle this question first?
Sure, I can take a shot.
Great.
Leonard Gardner with NRG, and thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'll just address the retail electricity prices first. I mean, certainly, like anything that we're seeing in the economy, retail electricity prices are increasing, and most of that's driven by the increase in wholesale COGS. Main driver of wholesale electricity is natural gas prices. I was looking back in 2020, natural gas prices were in the neighborhood of $2. Just this past month, they cleared around $10.50. So it's a dramatic increase, and that's just increasing throughout the retail electricity space. So I think in the short term, from a pricing perspective, you're going to see a lot of elevated pricing. You're also going to see a lot of volatility in pricing. I think for the long run, for green initiatives and sustainable solutions, I actually think it's a net benefit, because not only do those solutions provide sort of a pathway to renewable generation, it's also cost savings, and it's a way to reduce your exposure to retail electricity pricing. There's no better way to do that than put solar panels on your house. If you can do that, you basically don't have to, the marginal cost of that electricity is zero. So you're not going to be exposed to those retail electricity prices. So in the long run, I think it is, though right now it's elevated and it's volatile, I think in the long run it'll be a net benefit.
Jackie, I see you knowingly shaking your head. Did you want to add to that?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that in the long run, I think Leonard's right. I think that the continued investment in green initiatives and green infrastructure is the right way to reduce volatility. I think in the short run, it's a bit of a mixed bag as to how people are thinking about handling the upcoming winter and beyond, right? So there's a lot of pressure on people's pocketbooks, on residents, on small businesses, especially with inflation. And you see that there is, I think, in the short run, in some cases, a little bit of pullback on immediate green initiatives. I don't think that's going to continue into the long run, and some people are doubling down. So I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag. But to me, in my opinion, I think that the continued investment in green and green infrastructure is just going to remove and tamp down some of that volatility in the long run.
Great. Ken?
Yeah, I would agree with this in the long run. I think it's a net benefit to green initiatives. One of the things I think needs to be part of the conversation, though, is as you have people that are able to put solar on their roof and they leave the grid, what ends up, the people that are still connected and have to rely on it, right? There's fewer people to share those costs. So there's a bit of an equity consideration there, right? Like, how do you balance that, for the people that need that grid resource and need to be, connected to that system. And there's no real good answer for that today. But you're right, the regulated utilities have certainly benefited from these low cost and the ability to invest in their networks. And now that those prices are changing, you're going to have alternatives that are much more appealing, like NRG or Vicinity. You're going to have alternatives that are much more appealing, for sure.
Absolutely. Larry, did you want to?
Yeah, I think just to put a little, maybe to put it in context a little bit, you have what's going on right now is a little bit of a perfect storm. I think if you take COVID, When COVID started, you had a ramping down, if you will, in production, natural gas production. So now supply is down. Supply never really started to come back. The drilling never really started to come back on the natural gas front. And then you throw the Ukraine crisis.
Yep.
So now you have global energy markets in flux a little bit. You have natural gas in the United States wanting to be liquefied and sent overseas to hit markets in Europe. So you have low supply, high demand. Economics tells you prices are going up, and sure enough, we're at energy levels at prices that we haven't seen before. So in agreement with everybody, yes, you've got the market crying for price stability, price reduction actually, but price stability, and get rid of some of the volatility. The fact of the matter is you can move toward green initiatives, and we're seeing a lot of that. Our government we'll probably talk a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act, but that's all in an effort to promote green initiatives in an order to bring prices and stability into the energy markets. It's just not a quick fix. Anyone thinks that thinks we can lick this, very, very quickly. I think everybody would agree it's going to take time. That's why we're answering kind of a short-term, long-term. But this is a long road to make a transition to green initiatives.
Well, as you just mentioned, state and federal governments have not only spoken of their intentions to achieve carbon neutrality, but they are also devoting a tremendous amount of resources to the cause. For example, that Inflation Reduction Act that you mentioned, nearly $400 billion dedicated towards clean energy investments and initiatives. What energy sources are favored by fiscal policies of state and federal governments, and what does that mean for the future of Philadelphia's energy ecosystem? Again, I'll throw it out to the group. Maybe Leonard, would you like to answer first?
Sure, I'll take a stab. So certainly wind and solar get a lot of attention as a potential energy source to go more renewable. But I think carbon neutrality can be achieved. There's many pathways to carbon neutrality, and so if you focus on just the resource and the supply side of it, you miss the demand side. And there's things that consumers can do on the demand side to reach their carbon neutral goals. So it's things like storage, on-site storage. You could do distributed energy resources. You could do the solar panels, energy efficiency. So things like that the consumer can take to reduce their consumption, or reduce their consumption during sort of particularly carbon intensive periods on the grid. And those are all products and things that NRG offers and tries to help consumers do that so that they can reduce their carbon and ultimately hit their carbon goals. So wind and solar definitely play a part in it, but we shouldn't just focus on the supply side of it. We should focus on the demand side as well, because there's many options, there's many tools in the toolkit to reach carbon neutrality.
Absolutely. Jackie?
Yeah, I would piggyback on that. I think that the future energy ecosystem in Philadelphia and large cities in general is going to be incredibly diverse. I don't think that it's, number one, it's prudent, but also that it's likely that we're going to pick one or two horses, right?
Sure.
We have to think about the supply and demand side. We talk a lot about wind and solar, but there are plenty of other technologies that we're talking about right now, from heat pumps, geothermal, to leveraging district steam, to we talked about storage, to greater electrification. So to me, the ecosystem is going to continue to evolve in something that's much, much, much more diverse. And again, I think that's smart. It increases reliability and resiliency across the board.
Absolutely. Ken?
Yeah, and I would add to that, one thing that's interesting in some of these new policies is support for current technology as well, like nuclear got a lot of support in the Inflation Reduction Act. And you need to realize with renewables, right, you're always going to have an intermittency issue to solve, right? You need something that's running all the time. Now, maybe storage picks that up at some point, But today, that really is the role that nuclear and gas is fulfilling for much of the nation. And I really think, continuing to invest in technologies and look for new ways. I mean, you really need these government incentives to do this because the numbers involved, the amount of capital it takes to really break through on storage is significant, right? So the government support's important. But the one other thing I would throw out just for this area, you might not think about it because we're not on the coast, but offshore wind in the Northeast is really at an inflection point. And what the local story here is, I'm aware of at least the monopile facility being built in Paulsboro, which is a tremendous story for this area to support that. And if that takes off, that could be just significant for everywhere from New England down to Virginia. There's just a slew of projects kind of in the pipeline now, and we'll see how that develops.
Great. And Larry?
I think the other thing I would add, just to reiterate, yep, the supply side, I think we'd all agree you're going to see more wind, you're going to see more solar, things like that. Offshore wind, absolutely. On the demand side, we're already seeing it on the consumer markets for electrification of vehicles. I think you're going to start seeing it more in municipalities and commercial. You're going to see test programs are already started on clean hydrogen. Hydrogen is a fuel for buses and municipal fleets. We're running some pilots at WGL and our sister company, Washington Gas, down in the DC area to look at some of those types of things. But I think I took my drive over here was the Pennsylvania Turnpike from Pittsburgh. You're seeing a lot more charging stations at rest stops. Ohio is putting in Tesla charging stations all throughout the Ohio Turnpike. So I think you're going to start to see on the demand side more and more EVs, not just consumer, but going more into the municipal framework as well.
Great. I'd like to ask some individually targeted questions, and I'll start from my right to left. So Ken, the U.S. witnessed power and utilities transactions amounting to $13.2 billion in Q1 this year. With this, 57%, or $7.6 billion, was driven by the single largest multi-billion-dollar deal where Infrastructure Fund agreed to acquire South Jersey Industries at a 46.3% premium. Globally, the renewable energy and gas utility segments combined account for almost 80% of the total deal value. What do these transactions tell us about the future of the region's energy sector?
Yeah, there's no doubt there's so much money right now, and a lot of it's been raised by private equity and infrastructure funds that are chasing these renewable investments or regulated utility opportunities, and it's something we've seen over the past few years, but it really is picking up steam, and there's, I don't see any real reason why that's going to change. And it used to be, it really is, the motivation is interesting. The motivation is what's changing, in that it used to be people invested in renewables early on because you could make good money at it. Now the returns for operating renewable projects, they're not great, and they're attractive relative to other things, but now the story's kind of shifted to more of an ESG mandate, other motivations, and really what we're kind of getting to is a societal agreement almost, right? That this is something we need to do. There are real problems if we don't, decarbonize the energy sector in particular. So I think, just with the amount of capital that's been raised, the societal pressure to continue building this out, I think that's going to continue, driving what has been a very healthy, a merger and acquisition market over these past few years in this sector in particular.
And Jackie, Philadelphia has an ambitious goal to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. What are some of the exciting innovations Vicinity Energy is implementing in an effort to decarbonize Philadelphia, and what successes or challenges have you encountered on this path?
Yeah, well, I could talk about this a lot, so I will try to keep it brief, but I get really excited about what's happening at Vicinity Energy and what I think we can do to support the city of Philadelphia in achieving its carbon neutrality goals. There are probably people in the room who don't know what district energy is. I've been in the energy business for a long time and actually didn't know what it was until recently, embarrassingly, when I started this company. But essentially what Vicinity does is we own a vast network of pipes under the ground in City Center that delivers steam, energy, in the form of steam to over 90 million square feet of commercial space, universities, hospitals, campuses. So we touch a lot of buildings in downtown. And we generate that steam currently at our Grays Ferry plant. Most of you have probably driven by it on the highway. You can see it, it's right there. But may not know what's actually going on behind the scenes. And so we generate most of our steam there right now using natural gas through a process called cogeneration. I won't go into a lot of detail, but essentially what that means is that we simultaneously produce electricity and waste thermal energy that then we harness and we deliver that to our customers. So now it is a greener way, probably the greenest way to burn fossil fuels and to deliver two forms of energy, both electricity and that waste thermal. District energy is super unique because we are incredibly flexible. We can make changes to our operations at our central facility, which we've done for hundreds of years. That plant used to burn coal, and there is actually, you can go see the old railroad tracks from the cars that would bring the coal to the coal pits. And it has evolved over the course of the last many decades. And we are undergoing the very next energy transition at that plant and throughout all of our operations at Vicinity right now. And we're going to do that through, as we were talking about a moment ago, through essentially electrification, but also bringing in a whole number of new technologies at that plant so that we can deliver totally decarbonized green steam, carbon-free steam to all of those customers downtown. We're doing that three ways. So first is we are going to essentially reverse the direction of the electrons and start to import green energy as more and more becomes available on the grid and use electric boilers to generate our steam. The second thing that we're doing is we are going to install one of the most state-of-the-art heat pumps, most efficient heat pumps on the market today, right on the Schuylkill, which is going to take energy out of the Schuylkill but deliver the river water back actually at a colder temperature, so it's safe for the river. And we're going to use incredibly efficient thermal storage to store energy overnight when things like wind is blowing the hardest, when we can get the cheapest price. So I am completely stoked about what Vicinity is doing, as you can probably tell. But most importantly for us, it's managing both greens. So decarbonizing, but doing it affordably so that our customers can transition to net zero as quickly as possible because honestly, we can't wait. The challenges, so success, we've got great talent, we've got a lot of folks who are putting all their brain power into this. We've got a game plan, this is not greenwashing, we are moving, we just bought our first electric boiler. The challenges, I think, is really still around education. Letting people know that this super powerful tool is underneath the streets of our city that can decarbonize really quickly and affordably. So that's one of the things that my team here and I are really working on to make sure that people know that this is an option and it's a way to go green fast and cost effectively.
Absolutely. Leonard, NRG has placed a large emphasis on solar when it comes to sustainable solutions for customers. As electricity demands rise with the electrification of the economy, with electric vehicles being the 800-pound gorilla in the room, how significant of a role will solar play in bringing a supply to meet demand? And what benefits does solar offer to consumers over other energy offerings?
Sure. Certainly NRG has emphasized solar. We have about 2.6 gigawatts of solar PPAs. 2.6 gigawatts is enough capacity to serve over 500,000 homes. We also, from the consumer side, we also have various products and plans that we offer our customers to go solar. So one of the easiest ways to do it is we offer products where we just bundle in local or national solar RECs. And I always think of that as like, that's for a consumer who may not want to put solar on the roof, but still wants a cost-effective way to participate in the solar market. And it's a way you can kind of turn your electricity bill into a ballot and say you vote for renewable, and it's an easy way to do that. The other approach we take is community solar. So community solar is a little bit more tangible in the sense that you point to a local facility, and you point basically your electricity bill to that local facility. We brokerage some of these deals, and we also sell the community solar, and there's a cost savings there that consumers can enjoy to their local rates. So, and that's one of the benefits of solar is cost savings.
Sure.
Another way we do it is a product called Renewable Select that we basically let, you guys have probably heard a lot about the big tech companies, Amazon, Facebook, they do solar PPAs, but you have a lot of companies who just don't have the infrastructure to be able to do a solar PPA. So what we can do is allow a smaller business to participate in PPAs through our Renewable Select product. And finally, we help consumers get solar on their roof. And so that's another way that they can participate in the solar. So look, solar it's cost effective. It reduces your exposure to retail electricity prices. It's renewable, and when you pair it up with a battery, it can be resilient. So you get all those benefits, and that's where we see the value in solar.
Absolutely. And Larry, earlier this year, WGL released Clean Steps, a product that makes it easier for consumers to manage their carbon footprint. Can you provide us an overview of Clean Steps and what the future holds for consumers with regards to the ability to manage their carbon footprint?
Sure. What Clean Steps was we've talked a lot about, larger companies and in the news about ESG and reducing carbon footprints. Well, Clean Steps is a way that we can help consumers, you and I, reduce our own carbon footprints. And I think what a lot of people either lose track of or haven't been educated on is that, you can buy for your home through NRG or WGL or many other retailers, you can buy green energy. So you can say, for my specific home, I would like my energy to come from wind or solar or hydro or things like that, whatever the retailer is offering. But what you don't realize is even though you're buying green energy, you're still creating a carbon footprint in your home through running dishwashers, microwave ovens, heating sources, cell phone chargers, ridiculously throw out carbon that you're not aware of. So everyday life, we have carbon footprints that we create regardless of where our energy is coming from. What Clean Steps allows people to do is to offset those carbon footprints utilizing carbon offsets that we supply via a web-based consumer subscription service based on how many people might be living in the house, what kind of commute you have, travel. But we're now upgrading the Clean Steps project to reach out to municipalities and to companies that might want to offset their company's travel. I think now if you buy an airline ticket on United and most of them, there could be a surcharge on the bottom. If you check a box, you can offset your travel for another $4.30 on your flight. You will green, if you will, your piece of the travel. Well, our Clean Steps program kind of does the same, but more on a blanket yearly subscription service.
Interesting. We only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to open it back up to the entire group for a couple more questions. As Philadelphia strives for its 2050 goal to reach carbon neutrality, what are some of the steps the city and public officials should take to ensure that leaders in the community, such as those on this panel, are able to help facilitate this transaction? Jackie, would you like to take that one first?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I applaud so many of the efforts of the city officials in Philadelphia for taking the bold steps to create decarbonization targets, and they're working hard on public-private partnership to identify ways to do it. I think that the key is now is in some ways speed and identifying ways and opportunities to create incentive programs for people to make investments in technologies so that we can decarbonize as quickly as we possibly can and as affordably as we possibly can. To me, that is the most important thing that we can think about right now, is making it affordable, especially in this environment with the volatility in the fossil fuel markets and inflation and things we've been talking about. We've been spending a lot of time with our colleagues in the city and city council, really thinking through not only the targets, but what kinds of incentives programs are required for businesses across the city to make the kinds of investments in infrastructure that we need to move fast.
Great. Leonard?
Yeah, I mean, NRG is we have carbon neutral goals. We came out in 2014, carbon reduction goals. 2019, we set a target for zero or carbon neutral by 2050, and we think we'll be halfway there by 2025. I think as far as like what the city can do and what just public officials can do in general is, one, ensure reliability. So make sure the lights don't go out in our effort to achieve carbon neutrality. After that, set effective rules and policy. And then sort of step back and let competition and let choice reach the goal. And also, the last thing I would say is for policymakers to think about it, and this is kind of like what we've been talking about already, is to take a holistic approach to carbon neutrality, and again, not focus on one particular technology or one particular path to carbon neutrality. Like we said, there's many different paths. And companies like NRG are out there figuring out what are the products and the services that we can create and we can offer to customers to help them achieve carbon neutrality.
And for Ken and for Larry, I'd like to broaden that question slightly. While the United States pushes to become greener, cleaner, and greener, we are only a fraction of the total pie. Looking at the rest of the world, what is your prediction as to the time it will take to achieve global carbon neutrality and the primary struggles we will face in trying to achieve this goal? Larry?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know.
We're going to end it on a deep note.
Yes, I was going to say.
Let's go back to the Phillies. The Phillies.
Yeah. Could we roll this back a little bit? I'll just say that there's going to be a very large challenge. I think some of the numbers that I heard in the Inflationary Reduction Act, so there's $400 billion out there that's being earmarked for clean technologies, and we want to roll back greenhouse gases to 40% below 2005 levels. So by 2030, we want to be 40% below where we were in 2005. That's taking roughly 59 gigatons of greenhouse gas out. If we do everything in the bill, that takes us to about 49 gigatons. So we've got a 10 gigaton delta. And the only way you're going to get the rest of that stuff down is innovation. Mm-hmm. So there has to be spending. And you can't tell consumers use less. That's the way we're going to get to a greener. It's just not feasible. You have to not only use innovation, but you have to use it to make things cheaper. And until the right thing becomes the profitable thing, it won't become the probable thing. Yep. So we have to bring energy costs down. We have to spend money on innovation. And until we really start dedicating those resources, it's going to take longer to get where we want to be. So I don't have an answer as to when. I just know that there's going to be a bit of work that we're going to have to do to get there.
Absolutely. And Ken?
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't venture a guess as to when. I mean, I think that's a pretty tough one. But I think as we look at the world, they always throw out a couple of examples. Well, even if the U.S. met these goals and all this, you'd have all these other countries that are still burning a bunch of coal and doing these things. But I think you got to take a step back and realize that for some of these places, right, they're trying to get electricity to homes for the first time ever, right? And if coal's the quickest path to that, it's really hard to say that you shouldn't be doing that, right? So I really think it's going to be concerted effort. Really, some innovative technology that maybe we're not aware of today that just allows more people to have access to the energy they need, right, in an environmentally friendly way. I don't know what that is right now. But I do think, that just because there's other countries that are going to have a more challenge, that's not a reason for the U.S. to say, well, even if we did, we still wouldn't get there for the world, right? So, and I really think the past couple of years have taught us, right, coordinating things on a global level, whether it's a pandemic or meeting these climate goals, is hard, right? And it becomes exponentially more difficult if you don't even start from a place where everybody agrees you have a problem and what that problem is, right? And I feel like that's kind of where we are today, globally when it comes to this. So.
Well, we surely have a lot of work to do, but I feel at least better knowing that we have some amazing leaders that are in the positions that they are to lead this path. I'd love to thank my panel again, Larry DePompe from WGL Energy. We have Leonard Garner from NGR. We have Jackie Bliss from Vicinity Energy and Ken Gardner from Ernst & Young. Please thank my panel again for their thoughts. And to close us out, I'd like to introduce Josh Greenberg, our Executive Director for Invest Philadelphia, who made some opening remarks, and I think many of you might know him over his past number of years of leading this project. Josh, please, close us out. I've lost my words.
Thank you, Abby. Well, let's hear it for our panelists. Thank you, guys. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank our panelists and moderators. What a great way to conclude our live event. I'd really like to also personally thank the Philadelphia Marriott Downtown for this amazing venue and providing us with their great services today. Let's give them a round of applause, too. Again, for all that I have not had the pleasure to meet over the course of the last 4 years that I've been reporting on the Philadelphia markets, my name is Josh Greenberg, and I'm the Senior Executive Director of Invest Philadelphia, Invest Pittsburgh, as well as Invest South Jersey. And for all those who I have had the chance to meet, thank you. Again, it's definitely been great to work with all of you to wrap up our latest edition of our annual business report. Throughout this time, I've gained an incredible wealth of knowledge all about the great region that we all live, work, and play in. Thank you again to the amazing leaders who I met during this journey. Your support and enthusiasm for our project does not go unnoticed. I am blown away with what we've been able to really accomplish in a short period of time, and I'm really excited to start working on next year's edition. I'd also like to mention that we do have a pretty amazing audience with us here today. It's not only a testament to what we do more than ever, business intelligence, but not only to the necessity of what we do, which is really attracting and promoting investments to the Philadelphia region. It also speaks to the character of this business community, and this is definitely a community that leans in, rises above, and instills more that theme of a rising tide lifts all boats mentality. Again, I'd like to thank our incredible sponsors for making today possible. Our gold sponsors, Eisner Amper, Lincoln University, Mid-Penn Bank, Newman University, Penn State Brandywine, SEI, Vicinity, and WGL Energy. Our silver sponsors, the Haverford Trust Company, Markham, NRG, Ocean First Bank, Salus University, and Temple University Health System. Our bronze sponsors, Brandywine Realty Trust, Bucks County Community College, CBiz, I see you, CLA, Comcast Business, Community College of Philadelphia, EBA, Employing Bricklayers Association, EY, HDR, Philadelphia Works, Stockton Real Estate Advisors, and UBS, and our honored sponsors, Philadelphia Marriott Downtown and Philliport. Again, thank you to the Philadelphia Marriott Downtown and their incredible team for making today possible. As you leave, please make sure to grab your complimentary copy of the Invest Philadelphia 2022 report. Feedback is welcome. You can write to me at jgreenberg@capitalaa.com or contact@capitalaa.com. Last but not least, while Invest Philadelphia might be newly released, we have started updates to our Invest Pittsburgh and Invest South Jersey publications. Mark your calendars for these leadership summits. They're coming in February and March of 2023. Once again, thank you all for joining us today, especially to our keynote speaker and presenters, moderators, and our panelists for your insightful words and our sponsors for supporting our efforts. Thank you. Have a fantastic week, and go Phils.